and it could be just me, but when you look at and you hear terms like supply chain attack and zero-day attack and the differences there, and when we hear about the news from SolarWinds, the back end of last year right through to obviously the news last week for Kaseya, like what are the differences there, Adam? What does it all mean, and what are you seeing in the Security Operating Center?
Thank you, JP. Yeah, I think first of all, thank you for having me be a participant, and I know you guys are good afternoon, morning, wherever you guys are in the world. So it's definitely there's been a huge uptick, especially since COVID and over the year, a time where it kind of moved on to remote working and things like that, and we've seen attacks increase, 10x across the board for every industry, every sector across the board. And this actually highlights almost like how tactical, at the same time, how it was planned, right? It happened, if you look at it from US side, 4th of July weekend, right? It was planned to do on a Friday. A lot of individuals, a lot of these attackers, in this case, rebel group, ransomware group, they know the IT staffs probably coming through 4th of July weekend are going to be less. People are going to take off. What better time to do this, right? And to understand this attack vector overall, and there's a lot of misconceptions and misnomers that, hey, was a supply chain attack or this was a zero-day attack. In this case, based on what we've seen so far, and the full attack lifecycle has not been identified and given out right now, as FireEye is still investigating, doing the research with Kaseya. So that has not been revealed. To kind of take a step back, just so we all are on the same page and people who need to kind of understand. So Kaseya VSS software is a unified remote management platform that is used to monitor and basically provision infrastructure for multiple MSPs across the board. And what we know is about 60 MSPs across the world were affected, and about 1,500 of their sub-customers were affected. And the data that we don't have is how many endpoints are affected, right? Each one of those MSPs could have 10 servers or 1,000, right? So that it just becomes massive when you look at it, on a scale of going down. So we don't have that data yet. But in this case, back in May and April, we have a Dutch security group, which is pretty well known to be, a lot of working with the security community and working with vendors, trying to highlight security flaws within multiple softwares that are out there. And they actually engaged with Kaseya back in April and May and identified 7 different vulnerabilities with the VSA software. These vulnerabilities consisted of basically 2FA bypass, two-factor bypass, SQL injections, code injections, and a few others that went on overall. So what we believe is, based on the tactics and the research that's out there, is basically this was an authentication bypass that took place. And these attackers used the SQL injection mechanism to deploy the ransomware across the on-prem servers. And these servers are basically, open to the world. They're open to the internet. They're, not kind of blocked. And you want to kind of control these things by utilizing ACLs, or only allowing access to certain IPs and only certain users, because these softwares are so powerful overall, right? They control the overall infrastructure.
And just I might come back to that in a second, Adam, but James, what you have today on the call, you have a lot of business owners, people who run an MSP in North America or in Europe. You obviously run your business. You might introduce yourself, James, but it'd be good to get a context around, even as you see the problem over the last 6 months across your customer base, and what you're seeing today. It'd be great.
Yeah. So look, James Finglas, Managing Director of MJ Flood Technology, MSP based here in Dublin, Ireland. Good morning, good evening, and all the other time zones. So we actually, as an MSP, we utilize Kaseya. It certainly has been business impacting in the last week, and continues to be today. But I suppose if I just take it back a touch, that JP and I have been chatting probably for up to 12 to 18 months. I think it probably is, where we were looking to expand our MSP offering, recognizing that we needed something very strong, within cyber to add to the toolbox. And thankfully we chose Scout. We very good experience with them. And we've begun to deploy into our customers. But as part of that, we deployed it into our own environment. And last Friday evening, I was at a barbecue with some friends at 8 p.m. and I got a text from JP to say that the SOC was tracking a major incident on Kaseya. Now, just to point out, this is before Kaseya had been in touch with us. So I had an opportunity to escalate very quickly, take our VSA server offline. It is hosted in Azure, but that is classed as on-premise as opposed to a SaaS solution. So just to draw that distinction. So thankfully, from our perspective, that ensured we got off in time. We were unaffected from a ransomware point of view, and we resulted in no downstream customers being infected with ransomware, which we are very grateful for, and grateful to Scout. And I'm not just saying it because we're on a Scout call. It seriously, paid for itself in terms of the partnership, in the speed at which we were able to identify the problem. But moving on from that, our Kaseya VSA is still down. It looks like they're now talking about Sunday before we'll be back up and running. It has been slipping all week. So it's a serious problem. Yeah. Outside of that, JP, just to address the wider, we've seen all sorts of attacks across, regardless of industry, and significant amounts being involved, with them. And I think the most unfortunate part about all of these things are that companies are embarrassed due to, damage to brand, these sorts of things. So we tend to talk to these instances, except for the very high profile ones, in an anonymous way. And, a little bit like sort of, that we need to open up around talking about mental health. We need to open up about talking about cyber and how big a problem it is for all of us as a collective.
That's a great point, James. Actually, great connection there for sure. And just to sort of change it up a gear, Adam, and like doubling off what James is talking about, incident response is probably going to be the norm generally now, isn't it, Adam? So when you think about, I guess, small businesses, the fact that it's not if something's going to happen, it's when. What's the key attributes around incident response from a let's take the self-serving Scout out of the way and just generally around security operating centers and that interaction between security operating centers and MSPs, who are the heartbeat of small businesses now and running their IT?
Yeah, no, definitely a great question. I think one of the things, JP, we realized early on, about 4 or 5 years back, is one of the things we need to implement is a red team within our organization. Our red team is predominantly responsible for incident response. They are the cybersecurity experts. They are the ones who are actually doing live attacks on our own infrastructure, our own detection methods that we have. So each one of the rules that we have for all of our customers, the equipment that we have, and everything that's within our infrastructure that is utilized to service, we actually test ourselves. If there's a rule that we implement, we actually test those and make sure the same tactics that the attackers are using, we are able to detect and our SOC is able to respond to them. So that's one piece. The other piece is when these things do happen, right? Having a dedicated team assigned to be able to jump on a call, and do triage, what we internally call is a code orange. When a customer or someone has an attack or somebody, we get a lot of customers who come to us when they're already in the middle of attack and they want to sign on to Scout services. So we go into basically 3 of the phases in incident response, right? We go into, first we want to get into the process of whatever the malware or the virus or malicious file is, we want to contain that right away, right? We want to get that contained to a certain amount of hosts, only a few hosts, so make sure it doesn't widespread. And that's the predominant role of the red team, to make sure it's isolated and it doesn't spread across, the network to customers as well. Sometimes there's a link as well, right? So that's pretty much the overall red team.
But it's also very important to think about the partnership, isn't it? So when you think about the important piece that the MSP in this case brings to the table when their customers are infected, it can only happen with a two-way conversation and strong partnerships, and that's one of the things. I see Hal is on the line. I'm going to call you out, Hal. See if you're on. Maybe he's gone off. And
I'm here, mate.
There we are. There we are.
I'm drinking beer, so that's why I haven't got my.
Well, it's not Sunday yet for you, so I think you're a bit of time left. Any comments, Hal, on your side? Like you've probably see.
Yeah, I mean, what listening to that's just is something that we don't experience.
Right.
It's fascinating. It's also very exciting. I mean, we're a big WatchGuard partner and we're a big ESET partner. And okay, there is reporting within. Well, certainly on the WatchGuard side of life, but it's nothing like that. So for a new partner of yours to hear a story like that is very powerful. Absolutely, yeah. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, had I known James was having a barbecue, you'd
have been around.
I would have been around. Yeah, maybe that's the only reason I reached out. But the SOC obviously had that communication.
But I suppose, JP, it is good for that, and it's good for people to understand. We were, I would dread to think the condition of our business on Monday morning if we weren't aware of that in good time. Would we still be in business as an MSP? I don't know the answer to that, but it certainly sends a shudder up my spine to think that, as an MSP, you are now being targeted as a conduit to the customers. I mean, we've seen from this, I think it was Co-op group in Sweden was over 800 stores. Now, you can rest assured that, and no disrespect to Kaseya, but Kaseya are reporting that as one of those 1,500 customers.
Right.
Yet it's 800 retail sites closed down due to this attack. So as Adam said, I guess the statistics are yet to be seen. But again, it's Kaseya today. It may be something else tomorrow, and it's certainly the one that's business impacting.
It depends your relationship with James and how much time he wants to give you, JP. But if you were to package that up as a case study that we could deploy to our customers, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, we would be happy to. We would be happy to do that.
And obviously, James, you'll have to buy you many beers, won't he?
You'll have to buy me beers, and well, first of all, you have to win that match on Sunday. So and then we can buy lots of beers.
I don't think that's going to happen, but anyway.
Yeah, look, you're in it. You're in it. So that's
lucky to be in it anyway.
It could be quite Monday morning in the UK. Yeah. Either way. Sorry, Adam, you're going to.
I think Hal brought up a great point to kind of share that our case study and what we did for the this attack is very valuable, not just for MSPs, to see what happens in the background. So to kind of give you some light, as soon as we heard this news around like 1:30ish about, we actually realized quickly, based on discourse, Twitter, and with other Reddit, the researchers that were kind of quickly, you would see this tons of posts being made across the board. And it was amazing to see the MSP community, the cybersecurity community, how far we've come. Really, just divulge information and share it as quickly as possible. And if you look at a few years back, this would not have been possible. Like, people were not doing that. They were just kind of closed and, you know, keeping it to themselves. They're now divulging that, hey, I'm under attack, or I'm being exposed right now live. And this thing was happening live. And both Daniel and Jared, what we did is they actually, our marketing team, we stood up a war room right away within, as soon as we heard, we kind of had that, inclination that this is going to be something big. So our red team, our marketing team, our sales engineering team, and our SOC, all three teams across the board, and our purple team, were on a war room call, researching, identifying. Within basically 30 seconds, we knew all the customers that were using Kaseya. One of the proactive actions is every customer that had our endpoint protection software were already in a blocking mode, basically already being mitigated. So none of those were infected. Some of the ones that were not, kind of like just getting onboarded, were just going through that process. We actually took proactive actions to get them in blocking mode. We don't want to be having, to explain, oh, I was installing the software. We wanted to protect our customers. That's our number one goal as a SOC. So we went ahead and put those customers in blocking mode, and we actually just started making calls one after the other to all the customers. I'm sure James got the call, and luckily, and one of the things is the quick action and the research by the team and going into these big attacks really helped us protect our customers, from this incident. So to get back, having somebody, like James said, somebody to go to, somebody who's watching you back, is very important.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. And look, just thanks, Adam, James, Hal, for jumping in. Usually, I guess, Jared, after about 15 minutes, we wrap this up and wish everyone a good weekend. But do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, so today's chat did run a little longer, but thank you guys all for joining. It was some great content. Again, you can rewatch this. I know a few people joined late on our LinkedIn. I threw the link in the chat. I know Europe's going to have a busy weekend, but also McGregor is fighting, representing Ireland. So JP, I'm sure you'll have a fun weekend as well. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Excellent stuff.